This is the man. It's her former boss and the guy who actually hired her for that first job. John Hernandez, thanks again for joining us.
Glad to be here.
All right, you know, the president interrupted you earlier.
Yes.
How rude. But let's get right to it. The moment she walked in, who was this young lady who just kind of stepped into the station and said, I want to work with you?
As far as I remember, she came into the station and asked to be put in touch with the person in charge of sports, which was me. And I interviewed her and decided to offer her a job as an intern.
What struck you most about her, though? Her personality? Was she just outgoing?
She was very outgoing, very confident, and she wanted to learn about television sports. At that time, as a 24-year-old, she had visions of becoming a sportscasting superstar.
And tell us, I guess a couple of weeks ago when they made the announcement, Sarah Palin is the Republican vice presidential nominee. Well, your reaction to that?
Yeah, it was one of shock and surprise, especially because her name had been in consideration at one point and then quiet for a long time. But as things started progressing last week, you could see the old names drop out, and you knew something was going to happen. You heard she was on a plane from Alaska to Ohio, and something was up. And
critique her performance. We've seen the video of her doing her sportscast, and you were saying, hey, that looks familiar. That's kind of like what you used to do.
Yeah, that is the set of KTUU, Anchorage, Alaska, and awful set, bad lighting, but I thought Sarah did a good job of putting this sportscast together in terms of what she chose for content and what she wrote about it. She's obviously nervous and
the hair
stiff and got the big hair going, but that was 20 years ago, and this was maybe her third or fourth time on the air, so she didn't have a whole lot of experience under her belt. Very rare for interns to be able to be on the air at all, but I gave her a break on Super Bowl Sunday, 1988.
That was her first stint on air? How did that come about? You just wanted the day off, didn't you? You wanted to go see the game.
Well, I'm the weekday guy, right? I don't work weekends anymore, okay? I did that for a while. I didn't want to do it. And my regular weekend guy begged the day off. It's Super Bowl Sunday. I already have plans. And so I pick up the phone and I say, Sarah, guess what? I want you to do the sports on Super Bowl Sunday.
And she did?
Yeah, she did. And she did a decent job.
I know you're a lifelong Democrat. You're going to vote for her now because of the connection?
I'm leaning that way.
There you have it.
This is when most of the country first met Sarah Palin, but not John Hernandez.
Well, I'd like to say she learned it all from me.
Hernandez hired Palin back in 1988 as his sports intern at a TV station in Anchorage, Alaska.
The Iditarod, of course, is the biggie, but it's not the only mushing going on.
She was Sarah Heath back then, fresh out of college with a degree in journalism.
The college basketball scene got frantic this weekend. Teams still in contention are chasing those 64 golden spots in the NCAA tournament.
Hernandez saw great potential.
When I knew Sarah Heath, she was a 24-year-old. Nice gal, very outgoing, very confident, but we never talked about politics.
Never talked about politics or her personal life. At the time, Sarah was already dating her soon-to-be husband, Todd Palin.
I had no idea that Todd Palin was her boyfriend from high school, and about the time I set out on a 3,600-mile drive from Anchorage to San Diego was the time that she eloped with Todd.
Hernandez left Anchorage and didn't talk to Sarah Heath again. In fact, it wasn't until just a few weeks ago that he figured out his former intern
has racked up 272 penalty minutes, and he's
was the governor of Alaska. Hernandez was protective of Palin back then and still is today.
I've got some nutty left-wing liberal friends that are quick to point out inconsistencies and shortcomings, lack of experience, things like that. And I tell them, you know, you got to look at this like this is somebody who could be my daughter, okay? So don't go saying mean things about somebody who I have some emotion involved with.
But is it enough of an emotional involvement for this lifelong Democrat to vote for his former intern?
I was leaning toward Chuck Baldwin, the independent candidate, but I may have to change my mind. I'll see what happens in the next 60 days.